Maybe I'll leave it.
Hey, this is Jen Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jen podcast, where we discover how our authenticity is our superpower. I am so excited you've joined me for today's episode. Let's get started. Hi, friends. It is Jen Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jen podcast, and I am so excited for a couple of things. First of all, if you are watching us live, I am face-to-face and not just over Zoom with a great friend, Claire O'Connor. I'm excited to introduce you guys to her and hear her powerful story. But as always, the reason I even show up and we do this podcast is to accentuate and elevate and spotlight authenticity, right? There are times in our life where we have to step out of something and step into something else. And that's what I love talking about, because if you can identify with some parts of someone else's story and it gives you hope to dream bigger or to chase something for the first time, it's all worth it. So before we get started, let me introduce you guys to Claire. Claire has lived a vibrant and adventurous life, starting on a dairy farm in Ireland and seizing every opportunity that came her way. From being a sports personality with all-star awards to captivating audiences on stages and musicals, she's always been fueled by curiosity and a passion for trying new things. Her journey has taken her around the world literally twice, with stints living in Australia, Dubai, and now the United States. After 20 years as a teacher, Claire shifted her focus to well-being, working with children in schools and facilitating wellness programs. Her own personal struggles led her down many paths before discovering coaching. And now she's passionately dedicated to helping other women navigate life's challenges. There's so much to talk about. And first of all, thank you for being on. And I'm so excited to get your story out there. And I loved as I was reading about you, where you literally said, I went from signing autographs in Ireland one day to being a nobody in the States. And so I would love for you to share your story wherever you want to start. If you want to take us all the way back, or whatever part of your story you want to start, so we can see who you are and what's worked together to create you into the powerful woman that you are today.
Okay, well, I guess, Jen, I should probably explain the fact that I grew up on a dairy farm in Ireland, because this taught myself and all my siblings a huge amount about being in touch, first of all, with your true gut and your true self, and also hard work, diligence, what it meant to be part of a team that worked on a farm. And that also transferred into my life as a sports person. We knew the true sense of responsibility, of jobs, of, continuously showing up. And I guess for me, I always showed up. I did show up when we worked at home. I showed up at school. I worked really hard, and I had a particular passion for music and for sports. That's not a normal combination. As you know, most sports people aren't interested in music on stage and theatre. And I guess that gave me a skill set that wasn't always, you didn't gain all those skill sets at sport, and you didn't gain them all at music and on stage and theatre. So I love that I had the combination. And I also had a huge zest for life and drive. And it didn't matter whether I was playing a guitar, playing a game, or helping a friend. That drive and that zest to be the max, or to give that person the max, was something that always helped me hugely. And that also transferred into my life as a teacher. So I taught for 20 years, and I taught through the Irish language, which meant that all the schools that I taught in were Gaeilge Amháin, which means it was only Irish speaking.
Oh, wow.
Again, that was an extra layer for the kids that I was teaching. So they had an extra sense of responsibility to their education. And we also tried hard to, envelop the culture in the school, the Irish culture and everything. And so with that zest for life and with that drive, I did quite often push too hard. And I will say that I didn't have the skill set to pull back. That drive, that zest was always in me, no matter what I did. But actually, I didn't know how to pull back. I didn't have that skill set. I knew how to push and give, but I didn't know how to pull back. And it led me down a scary path, really, of what we call today burnout. I did not know what that was in 2007. I didn't even know what stress and anxiety were, or the sense of overwhelm. I thought that was not actually normal. And I think even, especially women today, we are so used to functioning on an extra high level that becomes part of the norm. And it's really deceiving. Burnout, overwhelm, stress and anxiety, they have become such a normal part of life that it's hard to recognize them. So this was me in 2007. And it was actually in my sporting career when I pushed really hard that I developed kind of a stress and anxiety. There were other things going on in my private life that made life a little bit more difficult for me. It wasn't major, but at the same time, I didn't know how to handle it.
Right.
And so I developed IBS. I never had a problem with food or anything like that. And I could not figure out why. I went to the hospitals. I did reflexology. I did acupuncture. I did all the well-being things. And each and every one helped me a little, but it didn't quite solve the problem. And sure enough, when I kind of brought myself back out with a bit of self-care, what happened? I jumped right back in where I left off. It was like taking a holiday for a little bit and then jumping right back in. And so I developed that pattern of overdoing it, overgiving, and it happened to me professionally then in teaching to the point of exhaustion once again. And it was at that stage, I suppose, that I learned that something more had to happen, that it wasn't all about giving, and that unfortunately for me, I lost a little baby. And that was the trigger for me to say, okay, enough is enough. I do know what's happening, but I don't have the skill set to actually take myself out of it again and not repeat the process. And for highly driven, busy women who are go-getters and who get out there a lot, it is our natural instinct to burn out, to become overwhelmed and to push so hard that we become really stuck and we don't actually know what the next step is except to keep pushing. And this is what happens a lot of women till the meltdown happens, till it becomes really serious. And that's why I became a coach. And it started at school when I started to see, I suppose, twilight moments for kids. They were being educated, but some kids' passions were in sport and some kids' passion were in music and art. And I thought, God, none of this encompasses the skill set you need to keep yourself on the right road in life. And I don't mean from a behaving and not breaking the law.
Right.
I mean, like, I'm not good in this place. How do I get myself out of it? How do I stop people pleasing? How do I create boundaries that I know how much I'm capable of doing without overdoing it? And I started to practice at school with the kids, and I could see this huge shift in how they saw themselves. Now, Irish education system is very good, and well-being is actually top priority at the moment. And it brought results for the children, and that would be me. Bring it to the next level. Right. How can I make this even better for kids? And then I began well-being facilitation for the Department of Education, which meant going around to education centres to talk the leadership through what it meant to be living and working in a space where well-being is considered a top priority. And people might not know this, but it can be as much as, you know, the staff restroom or the staff restrooms being smelly all the time. That is a part of well-being. That's a physical thing, and it does actually happen. Or how the looks, or so that is part of the environmental side of your workspace. And then we have, of course, the other side. Is somebody looking out for us? Is somebody taking care of us? Do we trust everyone? Is there a time or somebody we can go to when we're really feeling overwhelmed? If I cry for help, is there help available? And then that brought me to coaching.
Wow.
It was a long road, and I learned through my mistakes. I don't call them mistakes, really. I like to call them life lessons, because everything we do is a life lesson to bring us to a more mature version of ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. So I have so much to dive through. So first of all, I think you hit the nail on the head, the fact that in 2007, you didn't have words to express how you felt, right? You knew that this wasn't okay. You're headed down a path where you're exhausted on the deepest level. But as far as burnout, like particularly, like what are some warning signs, or what are some ways that if people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, I hear about burnout, what does that look like? Like, how can you tell that that's where you're headed?
Yeah, and the word burnout is not a nice word. And as human beings, we don't like to admit that we have a problem and we can't fix it. And this was me. I was like, God, burnout, I never heard of it. I don't like the word. I actually don't like it, right, personally. But if you say to someone, are you feeling overwhelmed that you can't think straight? Have you got like sweaty palms? Do you have this sense of dread on a Sunday night or a Monday morning? Do you go in and sit at your desk and stare blankly, not knowing what to do next? Are your relationships in the workplace or at home beginning to niggle because you're pushing hard? For women especially, they try to juggle multiple schedules. They have their own professional lives. Maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, which reduces maybe one level. But then if you're that driven, busy woman, you like to have everything perfect. Are you a perfectionist? Do you procrastinate between the best decision you could possibly make for your children, for yourself? The statistics show that women are still the primary caretakers in the home, despite two professionals living in the home. Predominantly in the modern world, there's two professionals in the home, and women still take on that role as extra over 50%. It's actually over 60% of women. Still the primary caretakers, still do the majority of the chores, still are the emotional support and the educational support for their children. So women don't actually know that this is not normal.
Right.
Because we have not evolved biologically, psychologically to be able to deal with all of this. And then there's the impending sense of failure. This is too much, I can't handle it. Why can't I handle it? What's wrong with me? You know, why is my heart racing? Why do I feel like I'm going to have to deep breathe and leave the room and scream? Because that is completely normal. So signs of burnout can go from level 1 to you being a highly productive person and nailing the new job or moving into the new home and absolutely loving the energy. But slowly, surely, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5, it's just a spiral. If you can catch symptoms like overwhelm, brain fog, high anxiety, constant worry, little bit of insomnia, sometimes a lack of appetite, sometimes you need to sleep more. It's like the extremes of everything.
Right.
If you can catch that at stage 3, you really are catching it before it catches on. Because stage 4 means it has now enveloped your life. It's everywhere. Why can't I handle anything anymore? Why is my house a mess? I can't even concentrate because my kitchen's a mess. Stage 5 is habitual, which means you dip in and out. And you think, oh, I'll take a holiday, I need a break. You sleep for 3 days, you feel amazing. Boom, you're back in. That is exactly what I did. That is not how you get over burnout. And getting over burnout and that lifestyle overwhelm is kind of boring, to be honest with you. It means slowing down to take notice of yourself and build up self-awareness. This was super hard for me. And I'm sure it was for you too.
Yeah, so I'm resonating deeply with, because our whole lives, like you just said, I mean, I can't even imagine dairy farmer. That's from your youngest of ages, all you've known is hard work. And, you know, and then if you have someone, like you said, who's driven, who has these aspirations, you know that what it's going to take is a lot of work, right? There's no denying. If you want to start something new, you've got years of working even before you get paid in some senses. And so I think that was the big issue for me, because I'm like, okay, if I just put my head down and I grind. But what I learned, and I don't know what level I would have been classified at, but I was at least at level 2, 3, where
4.
Yeah, right. 4. You're right. You know, and when I think about the fact that it took me 4 times as long to do something because I was so scattered and I wasn't just like, there was no focus. And it was, as soon as I would focus, I would think of these 30 other things. And I was like, oh, I'm probably just undiagnosed ADHD. But I think the fact was I was so burnt out. I was looking for something to give me life.
Yes.
Like I had so many things in front of me and everything seemed exhausting. Everything seemed depleting. Nothing just seemed easy. And so I think my mind was just like trying to find, okay, just go organize a closet, you know, or no, that was probably too hard, but maybe a drawer, right?
Yeah,
it became practical. And then I look up and I'm like, okay, I haven't really worked on my business in a few days because I needed a brain break. Well, then what happens if you don't recognize it as something that your brain needs? You feel guilty.
Yes.
And then you feel shame.
Yes.
Instead, fast forward when I completely burned out to the crisp and then realized slowing down to speed up has a lot of value.
Yes.
And so what would you say to someone who's feeling that right now, who's like, okay, that sounds great, Claire, you know, but I'm still a single mom. I'm working 2 jobs. I have 3 kids that I'm taking back and forth. Everything feels overwhelming. So I can't just sit down and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
You know, what is that? What does it look like?
You know, for me, that was no good either. Like singing Kumbaya or telling me to meditate. When I started to breathe, I couldn't even breathe for 16 seconds. I couldn't breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. 16 seconds of my life, and I couldn't do it. So to build up to 16 seconds, that's considered a meditation. So if there's a woman out there or a man who thinks that they can't start, they feel so stuck in their lives that they don't even know where to start, there are some really And I will call them tools because we all have to start somewhere. And that was me. And I had been on the journey of well-being before I started into coaching. But when I went into coaching, that was where I learned the real tools, the NLP, the growth mindset, the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a very fancy word for being very self-aware, slowing down and taking 2 to 3 minutes every day to check in with yourself in the morning and in the evening. And the psychology tells us if we say things like in the morning, and I mean just say, today's going to be a great day. How? I'm going to do this, this, and this. 3 things. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Let's do it together. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. That 16 seconds brings a sense of calm to your mind. Another one is humming. If you start to hum, you can't actually do anything else. Try it when we get off the call. When you start to hum a song, humming is also very therapeutic. They are practical in the moment. I've got 3 children screaming. I need to leave the room for 16 seconds. I'm completely overwhelmed and I don't know where to go. They are just some practical things.
Wow, I love that.
One question to ask yourself in the morning is, what is my goal for today? My one goal. Not my 5 goals, not a 20-piece to-do list. There's way more strategy for that when you go through coaching. But the practical tools today, what is my one goal? And if you achieve that, the psychology behind ticking that box is incredible, because guess what? Tomorrow you might add another one. And they need to be micro goals. They can't be, tomorrow I'm going to save the world. Tomorrow I'm going to do 5 podcasts. Tomorrow I'm going to take on 3 new clients. That is impractical, and it gives a sense of failure. And for me, as that driven, busy woman, my to-do list was always too long. It was always too hectic, and I knew I was never going to get there. So I shortened it. And I'll give you a funny story, actually, as that human who made that to-do list. One morning I was sitting at my desk, and I still have to self-coach to this day. And the tools that I teach in my 12-week program for women, they're all based on research. They're all based on study I did for 18 months with women. But also they're all based on the real life women who need to get stuff done. It's not just about sitting around fantasizing about your ideal life. That's not practical in the real world. So those questions in the morning, my story was 10:30 one morning, got the kids up at 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is totally normal behavior for any person, parent of any kind who's getting their kids out to school. And I did that and blah, 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 got to 10:30. Oh my goodness, I've done nothing. So the negative talk, we have 80,000 thoughts a day. 90% are repetitive and 75 are negative. So the negative thought for me was, I've done nothing today. I've done absolutely nothing. So I had to pause and write down the list of what I had done between 7 a.m. and 10:30. The flip in my mindset was, oh wow, I've done 6 things. I've even gotten the laundry, gotten the kids to school, had my breakfast. Oh my goodness, I even made a walk and had 2 connection calls with 2 people. But I had told myself I wasn't doing enough. Not good enough. And a lot of human beings say, I'm not good enough. And this is the negative thought that goes around for 75% of your time. So that's practical. And in the evening, lying in bed, what was good today? Such a basic question. What went well today? Oh, that was, we had a really good conversation with Jen on her podcast. What could I have improved on? Well, I could have brushed my hair before the podcast. I mean, I looked a total mess. You know, the things that so the next time you'll be a little bit more careful. And just that simple 1 to 2 minute reflection is more practical than anything. The other thing I would say is, we live in a wonderful world. Time is the only thing we can't control, but our attitude towards time can be controlled. And funny enough, Jen, if we keep saying, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, what happens?
You don't have time. Of course not.
Right. But if we say, I have 30 minutes there, I'll take a quick walk. The flow in your brain that happens when you walk. And I like to use the 15-minute rule. And for anybody who's listening, the 15-minute rule is the simplest strategy, but that is what we have forgotten because we're so busy doing. The 15-minute rule is, I don't have time to walk. Okay, let's try it for 15 minutes. Let's walk for 15 minutes, take off the sneakers, sit down again, back to work. That's really practical, and that was realistic for me, and I would hope that would be realistic for anybody listening.
I love that. That's so practical. Because that's where we get, if we think of, I think it's so, I'm like connecting all these thoughts, because even my son, so right now trying to teach him, if you're looking for an excuse, you're going to find an excuse, right? If you're looking for a reason or a solution, you're going to find that. And it's such a mind game. And I'm like, man, if I could just get my little 11-year-old to just grasp that the sky's not falling, right? Like it's the whole, I have no time, everything is the worst. And I'm like, no, like, let's just refigure this out, and let's think of a new idea. And, you just keep hitting the wall over and over and over again. And so shifting your mind to say, okay, you know what? No, I probably can't have a 3-hour workout added to my morning routine, but I can add 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want to do, then do that 15 minutes. And I'll tell you, when I was in my burnout, coming out of all of that phase, my morning workout was my sanity. That was my one check mark. And I knew every morning before 6 a.m., I've had a check mark. And if I can have one check mark, and at this time, I can do another one. And if I can do 2, I can do 3. But if I can only do 1, heck, I did 1. Yeah. And that was like when they talk about confidence stacking, I love that imagery, that when you say yes to yourself, because what happens? We go to bed and we're like exhausted from the day, and our kids have had all the things. Like last night, I didn't get home until like 10:30 from baseball, and I'm like throwing boys in showers, trying to get them in the bed and all of that. And I'm exhausted before. And then I'm already thinking about my morning this morning. And I was already like, but old Jen would have been like, forget it. I'm not waking up. I'm not doing this. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm going to move the workout to home so I can save my drive and I can still get my 30 minutes in here. And you look for ways to make it happen.
The psychology says that, and the research says, and I don't know if anybody follows Mel Robbins, but she did a huge research piece and brought it up in one of her podcasts about the psychology and the science, and the research says that if you want to find joy in your life, you actually add it in. You don't remove anything. If I want to dance, I dance for 20 minutes in the kitchen. Who doesn't like dancing in the kitchen with their kids? Like, right? It's such a point of joy. And to add to that, it's a point of joy. It's a glimmer in your day. And we have to start reversing what our brain has been doing to us for years. And that is watching that 75% of negative thoughts. And by switching and going, what are the glimmers in my day? Yeah. Oh, there's my kid. He just played 2 baseball games. He was amazing. Glimmer. I did my workout this morning. It might have been 30 minutes, but 30 minutes, like 5 times a week, is 150 minutes. It's what the WHO recommends. So let's find the glimmers. Let's find the points of joy, and then that just brings you into a whole different mindset. I would stress, though, we should not be unrealistic about it. Like you said, 1 thing checked off the list this week, 2 things next week. Please don't go from 1 to 5. It's unrealistic, and it gives you a sense of failure. And guess what? Sense of failure, I'm not good enough, totally overwhelmed, anxious, I'm not getting it done. And that's the hamster wheel that takes you on the road to overwhelm, lifestyle overwhelm, not just burnout. Most people are in lifestyle overwhelm all the time. Catch it if you can, is what I'd say. Pay attention. Another thing is, Jen, I use the analogy of a helicopter a lot, or zooming out. So if there are people who are so busy doing, they're stuck in the weeds. And I always try to say to my clients, zoom out, get into the helicopter, observe yourself like you're looking down on your life. What are you noticing? How are your interactions with your children? Who are you making time for? What is driving you to do the things you're doing every day? And this self-awareness, like with those questions in the morning, how can I make the day good today? What's the goal of my day? And then the end of the day, so simple. What went well? What can I improve on? Not what did I do wrong? What can I improve on? Because mistakes are not mistakes. They're just life lessons. What should we take from them?
Right. Okay, that's so powerful. Okay, so you alluded to it before. Our life gets us to where we are. And so clearly you have so much wisdom, and you're such a gift to any woman that you coach. And so rewind this back just a little bit. I know I kind of like dabbed into, parts of your story, but I would love to dive into that more, because I was fascinated by that one statement where you said, I was signing autographs on Saturday, and on Monday I was nobody in the States.
Yeah.
So talk about the journey to where, like what you got to and like what your dreams were there, and then what the transition was like for you to not only move across the country, but lose a lot in that.
Yeah.
Clearly you've gained in the process, but take us back there. Like what is that transition like?
Okay, it was a very difficult one. And there was a lot of transitions at once. So we moved continent. We moved from Ireland to America for my husband's job. He was part of a supermarket franchise, Lidl, and they moved him over here to try and improve the situation because they started a bit rough, you know. Secondly, I took a career break from my teaching career. I loved teaching and I loved kids and I loved, you know, engaging with people all the time. But in order to come here, I had to park that. So I left meeting up to 200 people a day to zero. I also did media and TV in Ireland, and most of that came from a really, really good sporting career. Again, the driven and luckily enough to be athletic at the same time. And we got to perform on an elite level in the best stadiums in Ireland in our national sport, which is hurling and camogie and Gaelic football. So luckily for me, I had a good career there, a long career, and I was asked to do media presentation as a result. Sports analysis, you know, commentary, announcing. And on the week before we left, I was part of a series called Underdogs, and it was for an Irish language TV network. And in that, I was a coach. I was a sports coach, but I was also a personal executive leadership coach. So I would talk the team. There was 30 men, and I was one of their coaches. And by the end, we played the best team in Ireland, and we were all signing autographs. It was a 6-part series, and that was on Saturday evening. And my husband had already left for America, so I was there. And a lot of women can attest to this: minding the 2 kids, keeping the school routine going, keeping the after-school schedule going, feeding them, working myself, and trying to complete this TV series and traveling to do that. So I was depending on a lot of help from family, but I was also really enjoying that process. Even though it was tough, and the driven and the busy person will tell you that, you know, you nearly operate better when you're under pressure, except for the crash that comes afterwards. And for me, it was a crash because we had to move out of our home. We had to move our kids. And my husband was already gone a month. And I was completing the series. And we left on Sunday. And on Monday morning, we arrived in America. And I woke up in the bed and I was literally, I am back to zero. I am nobody. Other people would say, oh, wow, it's a great opportunity. And it was. But that initial feeling was,
you lost your identities.
I lost my identity.
So
many identities. I moved from employee to entrepreneur because I had decided that I was going to give my coaching my full-time attention. It was part-time in Ireland. My husband was gone to work. He was the breadwinner and I was minding kids. And I remember thinking, I have to start again. I have to start again. And I did not have to do this in Ireland. You know, I was well known. I was asked to do all these things. And now I was back to zero.
Wow.
And I think one really hard thing for me from all of that was one day I was just trying to set up home and make sure the kids were settled. And one of the neighbors asked me, would I mind their kids? And for a professional driven woman who's just finished up in radio, TV, and about 2 or 3 other professional attributes, to be asked by a neighbor to mind the kids, while that's a lovely job for a lot of people, it is not my gig. And it was such a contrast to the life I had been living. It completely stuck in my gut. It was like, what have I done? What have I done was the question. And if there are people who are thinking, oh, what have I done or what am I doing? You really do have to trust your gut, and you have to go deep. And I have a lot of women who come to me at this stuck point, whether they're starting a new business or need to just break free from the stuckness and the overwhelm of the life they're living. Actually, that was me. I wasn't that I was stuck. I was just such a massive change. And it was major. It was a big slide. It was like, it wasn't a big slide into a splash pad. It was a big slide into the mud, and I did not want to get stuck. And so that was the start of the American journey. And even though I had the skill sets and the work, and that's when I started to do my research on the women I wanted to coach. And I decided that niching into that would bring the culmination of all my skill sets together from the hard work of youth and zero. I have to say, Jen, one of the big problems with me, and I don't know if you felt it, was constantly people pleasing.
Big time. That was the first thing I had to overcome, was finding my own self, because my whole life had been about making everybody else happy. So I genuinely did not know what I even liked or I know I made the joke.
Tell them about the egg.
Yeah. So my
Tell them
favorite, one of
about
my
the egg.
favorite scenes that I resonate so deeply was the scene in Runaway Bride, and Julia Roberts into a relationship, and she literally sits there and she's like, I don't even know how I like my eggs.
Yes.
And I'm like, I've never resonated so deeply with a thought, because I don't know how I like my eggs. I don't know what I want to do with my future. I don't know, what my favorite color is. It was just like,
you were completely stuck.
Complete identity crisis.
And you couldn't make a decision. So decision making was affected. And then you procrastinated over those decisions. And women spiral in those situations. We love structure. We love to know what we're doing because we use our brains in a multifaceted way. It's actually clinically researched that women actually use their brains more than men, not for better or for worse. They just use it in a more diverse way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when women go to a gym class, they just want to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have to think about what they're doing. They want to just know what they're doing, get it done, and get out the door.
Right.
And that's why I always try to lean into the practicalities. Mm-hmm. So what way do you like your eggs?
Oh, I love scrambled with cheese. Yeah. That's so funny.
So and the women I take care of, they don't know how they like their eggs.
Right.
And they're just like, I haven't thought about myself for 5-10 years, or maybe it's just 5 months, but they're in that overwhelm where they can't think straight. And that's what I like to bring back. And when I started that research, I talked to amazing, driven women, VPs, CEOs, stay-at-home moms, everything. But they were all suffering from the same things: overwhelm, stress and anxiety, procrastination, decision-making, people-pleasing, zero boundaries. All of these things were the combination. They were actually a poisonous combination for a lot of the women, and most of them were very successful. So the masking was great. Oh, we're great. We are fine.
I was the queen of that mask.
Yeah.
And life is great. And I think you may resonate with this some. I realized I put a mask on to remove myself from the pain of every other part of my life. And so when I went out, I know, like, growing up, I had an alcoholic dad, and nobody knew. I mean, I had like one friend in high school that really knew that, what home life looked like, because everything was like, put on a mask, be something for somebody else, be something that I wanted to make other people happy in the least genuine way possible. It was like all things to all people. And so now I think it's funny that my tagline is be genuine, because now I understand what that means. And I understand that I still want people to leave my presence feeling better about themselves than before I came into the picture. But it's a different thing when you are faking it and you are covering up things and you are living this like just an inauthentic. There's no other word for it, but it's exhausting.
It's exhausting
because you go home and you're like, you live with the question, I wonder if they would just like me. And even a part of that is you don't even know what that me is anymore.
You're living a lie. Essentially, you're living a lie.
Completely living a lie.
And I do think that women suffer that a lot because they want to show up. And funny, like kind of opposite story to that, I had an aunt who had breast cancer, and that kind of living a lie doesn't work. But her mantra was, get up, dress up, show up. And that was just for her. That was for nobody else. And she had to go through cancer treatment. So I think that's really important. Right. Get up, dress up, show up, but for who?
For you. Right.
For you.
And that was a huge shift, because I used to pride myself on the fact that I was building a business at home on Zoom. I could wear whatever I want. This is just casual. And I was in, t-shirt and shorts and leading, financial service conversations on Zoom. And then for the first time I looked, and I'm like, I feel like I'm identifying with what other people would think freedom would look like. Oh, you get to wear t-shirt and shorts but that wasn't really what I wanted to wear, right? Like that didn't make me feel confident. It wasn't for anybody else. It's just like when I put lipstick on or when I put my pink on, I'm ready to go and make a difference. And so it's just an internal thing. And even that, going down to what you wear, are you wearing for somebody else, or you just get it just
and anecdotal story? Well, it's not anecdotal, it's truth. As a teacher, you can go to school in the most comfortable casual clothes in Ireland. You really can. But I'm a sports person, and on the day we would play sport, or the day, because in Ireland the teacher teaches everything, so we don't specialize,
Oh,
we don't
wow.
go specials.
Mhm.
And funny story, the day I would go in my gym gear,
Mhm.
bit more chaos in the room, bit less respect,
Mm.
bit more fun vibes.
Mhm.
The other 4 days, I would come in my proper, what I would
Mhm.
consider professional clothing. Big difference.
That's interesting.
So the psychology behind that, and colors as well, all the colors
Mhm.
that you wear,
Mhm.
they have an impact in
Mhm.
the room that you're standing in, and so too does assertive language and body language, and I do that as well in the program, and I like to touch on it, and personality types and things like that.
Mhm.
Some amazing collaborations. So through this work, I have met amazing people, amazing women, amazing men that have so much to offer
Mm.
if they'd only open up to themselves.
Mm.
I think that's what it is, opening up to you rather than being all things to all people, which we both were,
Right.
for a long time.
Yes. And then you realize it's just ultimately a diluted version of yourself,
Mhm.
and giving yourself the freedom to tap into ultimately your authenticity. So I would love to hear, just like a successor, one of the most fun stories that you've gotten to experience of someone that you've coached. I mean, keep all the private things private, but just a transformation and what you've seen, in your
Okay.
own coaching.
This girl that reached out to me, so I'll call her client A,
Mhm.
just for, just to respect her privacy.
For sure.
And client A, I knew her vaguely, but she came to me and she said, I'm in a job. I don't like where I live. I am so stuck. I don't exercise anymore. I have lost all sense of my identity. I don't know who I am. Yet she was continuing to push on, and she was people pleasing everything. And the most shocking thing she said was, I think people just tolerate me. They don't even
wow.
like me. So we took her through the program, and
Mhm.
halfway through it came to core beliefs about yourself. We did
Mhm.
testing for core strengths. We did personality testing, and it uncovered a huge amount for her, and she couldn't speak about herself for a long time. And I'll scroll forward to 12 weeks on, not 12 months. She was super, and she did all the little snippets of homework, which were 10 minutes or 5 minutes, all very manageable, because women can't be overwhelmed. They need it in small chunks.
Right.
And so 1 week after she completed the program, she put in for a new job. She applied for a new job. She quit the rental of the place she was living and found a new home. And she actually, and this is a big one for her, was able to cut ties with somebody, a love interest that she was really obsessed with, that was in her company, but he was treating her with disrespect because she had completely given him her power. So we worked on taking her power back. And once she realized what she needed to do, it came so fast. She was completely transformed. And yeah, new job, new home, but she took action on that. And that's what coaching is about. It's about creating small, actionable goals, taking them off the list, moving on. And she is one. And then I will call her client L. And client L thought there was nothing left for her in her life. I mean, she said, I just settled that this was my life. I was at home. She was a great sports person. And she just thought that was it, minding her kids and going to play sports 3 times a week, and that was it. And her relationships were starting to fall ill, we'll say, with her husband, with her family. She had a lot of broken relationships in her family, but she didn't have the power to actually realize what was happening. And so we took the program, we worked on relationships, we worked on the language, reframing your thoughts. That's all through cognitive behavioral therapy. She basically rebuilt her relationship with her husband. She created boundaries with the other members of her family that she needed to do, which completely uplifted her. And she started a new business. And on the 13th week, we were finished on 12 weeks, and she started a new business. She had had this idea for so long, but she was so stuck and overwhelmed, and she couldn't find a way forward, that, she believed in herself after 12 weeks, and she started a new business. That's just 2, but they are great girls.
That's
one's in
amazing.
America, one's in Ireland. So what you find when you do this group coaching is that it's such a small, tight group. It's 4 to 6. You do have to come into it, and I do have to make sure you suit the program. And when you get to know these women, you are uplifted by, first of all, their struggles. You're like, oh yeah, that's me too. I feel like that was the exact same as me. And then you see them moving on. You're like, I can do it too. And there's this belief as a team. And then there's the accountability, and they know that they have me outside of the sessions as well, which is massive. So that would be just two examples. And I was working with a gentleman this morning who was really stuck in his health and well-being, and we had a great session, and he was able to forge a path forward. He had literally, his own words were, a couch potato, can't even see how I'm going to get up off the couch.
Wow.
And yeah, we set a plan this morning because coaching is future focused. We want a way out. We don't want to be thinking about what we were doing when we were 10. We want to we want to get all the troubles out and the things that are bothering us and take an actionable move forward. And we have a huge amount of strategies in the program to do that, or any coach, anyone decides to work with a really strong coach. My advice would be, have that 30-minute chat with them first. Make sure that they suit you and your needs. I would say you have to align with them, and you have to trust them. Trust is massive, and that confidentiality is there. And then once you see, this is for me, go all in, because the transformation can happen very quickly once you invest the time in thinking about yourself.
I love that. So good. So before I want you to give all the details, I want everybody, if they listen to this and they're like, oh my goodness, Claire, you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I believe you can help me. They resonate with the burnout, with the stages of burnout, with the brain fog, to the confusion and overwhelm and all of the things.
Yeah.
But just a couple of fun questions as we wrap up, and then just to kind of get to know you and what's shaped you as well. First of all, what is best book you've read?
Wow, there's been a lot, especially in the coaching world, but I would say I loved Atomic Habits by James Clear, or Dr. Julie Smith, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? There's two.
Okay,
two for first one.
Okay, there you go. Leveled up, of course. I love it. And then, okay, so that's your favorite book. What about person? Who's been the most influential person in your life?
Ooh, well, obviously my parents, because they shaped the hard work and the ethic, and the support they have always given me has been incredible. They're two humble and hardworking people. And my husband, Pierce, has been a serious driver for me, because when I moved from employee mindset for 20 years to entrepreneur, he was there, he had my back. And I would say a lot of sports people I've worked with have been really, because they're genuinely deep, hardworking, responsible, collaborative people. And I would always appreciate that. And anybody who's ever given me decent, honest advice. I think honesty is the best policy. And when somebody told me that nobody was coming to save me, and I knew then I needed to take action for myself. So somebody said to me, nobody's coming. And you've given your power away, and it's up to you. And that was really honest advice, but great advice.
Oh, huge. Sets you free from the blame game, and taking ownership, I think, is one of the biggest gifts you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you blame, you've literally given the other person your complete power. Okay. So what about, your most influential person, book, and when you have a brain fart in the middle of a podcast, it just happens, and is what it is. Oh my goodness.
It's okay. I'll fill in for you. I was going to wear pink today, and I wore pink lipstick, but it's worn off by the time I got here.
I know. I'm so sad. But you have your green Ireland in there. Okay. Your morning routine. Okay. So I'm obsessed because I know what it did for me.
Okay.
When I shifted what I did in the morning. Is that a big thing for you? Do you have a morning routine you keep, or is it just things you do during a day?
I do have a very soft morning, as in a soft morning routine. I do always have to plan the evening before what's happening, because for me, as the driven person I am, and the tendency to get anxious if I don't have the structure and know what I'm doing, I would almost always plan the day before. The top 3 things, just to get started. Slow starter. If I was ever playing sport, I would nail it at 7 o'clock in the evening, useless at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm just not the same person. I need fuel in the morning. I cannot do without breakfast, and exercise or morning sunshine. Like, even if it's only 5 to 15 minutes for me, practically speaking, if I've got a call. So it's up, get the kids out of, get the kids out to school, and then it's fuel up no matter what. I have to fuel up. After that, then it depends on, do I get 45 minutes of work done before I exercise, or vice versa? But almost always, that would be definitely 3 times a week. I would have to get exercise of some kind.
Right.
I need yoga, I need strength, and I need movement. So that has to be in my week.
I love that. And I love it. That's why I say there are things in the throughout the day, because there's so many people now, they're like, I can't do mornings. And I'm like, hey, that's fine. Whatever you do, I just know that when you add certain things to your life and you know that these are non-negotiables, because it goes back to helping the way that you function. It sets your mind right. And for me, the 5 a.m. workout with a cold shower when I was in the middle of burnout literally was like, I started every day knowing I can do hard things. And that's what my body needed. My mind needed to be reminded I can do hard things. And then later on, I was like, I need to heal. It's like, for me, it was like getting back into I can't just sit in the back of my room and just lay on the bed and not do anything. But then ultimately, after I got through that discipline, then it was, I have to journal this out. I've got to get real with healing and forgiveness. And, so just allowing the fluidity of that.
And I think that morning question, what is my goal for the day? That would be me. And I do journal as well. I don't like to talk too much about journaling because I think people have a phobia of journaling. But journaling doesn't mean an essay. It means answer one question in the morning, answer one question in the evening, even if you're not writing it. Although the stats say that if you write it with pen and paper, 23% chance of you retaining more. So you will retain 23% more. So that is part of my day as well.
I love that. Okay, last question I end every episode with is, what does your authenticity as your superpower mean to you?
I think stepping into my truly zestful self. I always was it. And I lived most of it, but I think now that I speak it, that is probably where it's brought me from. Whereas I didn't speak about my successes before. In Ireland, you don't get too big for your boots. So stepping into speaking about the things that have worked for me and been successful for me in my life, and also acknowledging that you can be successful and make mistakes and suffer in your mind. And it's okay to have to. In fact, it's healthy. And I've accepted that a little bit of anxiety or stress is actually healthy. It moves you forward. We are programmed to have a little bit of stress and anxiety. This is good until it becomes unhealthy, obviously, and you have to know that boundary for yourself. So yes, speaking my truth, I think has been a big one for me.
I love that. It's so good. Okay, so tell people all the things. Where can they find you?
Okay.
I know you have something big coming up. You're doing a collab, and you have a group that's coming.
Yes.
So I would love for you to give all these details. I will definitely put all of this in the notes so you can have all the links, but I would love to hear from you.
Okay, so first and foremost, I am on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I love the platform of LinkedIn because there's so much learning there at the Bright Life Coaching, and that is LinkedIn and Facebook. Actually, you could get me at Claire O'Connor on LinkedIn too. But my program is called Zenith Back to Brilliance. It's a 12-week online group coaching program. The maximum people I take there is 4 to 6. The reason being is for absolute intensive work that they have me outside of the sessions. I like to treat my clients like I'd like to be treated. The people I take care of, I would like to be taken care of like that. You can check me out in any of those places. Get in touch at claire@thebrightlifecoaching.com. I have many different slots that you can book into to see if the program would suit you. And then finally, I have a free workshop next Wednesday at 1 p.m. EST, 6 p.m. GMT. And you can catch all things achieving balance in an overwhelming world. So join me there, and I'll pop the link in, and I would love to see you because it's a great start to becoming aware of you.
I love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. What a great convo. You're such a beautiful person inside and out. And I'm so thankful a mutual friend connected us. You have just such a good spirit, and you are, you've experienced so much, and the heart that you have to give to others is unmatched. And the fact that you've done the research to back it, like you are such a wealth of information for someone that's just like trying to survive. And just, what a gift. Listen, and could you not imagine answering the phone and getting this voice on the other end every single time? Like nobody else gets to do that for you. So I could just listen to you talk all day. But you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us for episode 25. Thank you. So thankful that you're here. And I love you. And that may seem crazy because I don't know a lot of you, but listen, there are people around the universe who hate people for absolutely no reason. And I will always choose to love you for no reason until we meet and I find the millions of reasons there are to love you. All right. Love you guys, and keep being genuine.